Another day, another story. I posted my first video on March 9th with 0 subscribers. And 10 days later, that same video gained 1,000 subscribers and 20,000 views. No outside promotions, no other bigger channels for views, just a lot of time invested into one video with a huge focus on quality. But what were the stats before the video triggered the YouTube algorithm? The first 48 hours, the click-through rate for the video was 12.5%, with just 88 impressions in an average view duration 3 minutes and 56 seconds, 75% of the video length. The third day was where the impressions increased to 5,000 and a click-through rate hovering around 9.2%, with the average view duration normalizing at 2 minutes or 40% of total video time. But what about the viewer satisfaction? YouTube sends out surveys to understand viewer satisfaction with the video they just watched. And while we'll hack this information from YouTube at a later date, it's safe to use these 3 other indicators to gauge what the survey scores will look like. The views to like ratio, views to comment ratio and the views to subscriber ratio. The typical ratio I found online was 4% for likes to views or 1 like for every 25 views, 0.5% for comments to views and 0.5% for subs to view ratio or 1 comment or subscriber for every 200 views. For our video the first 3 days with 470 views, the likes to views ratio was 1 to 10. The comment to view ratio was 1 in 20, and we managed to add 34 subscribers, so 1 subscriber for every 13.8 views. These numbers are well beyond the typical average range mentioned, and in some instances, 10xd amount. But the question is, how is this all done? In this video, I wanted to share my entire production process in the hopes of shedding some light into how you can replicate this for your channel. When we think about creating a video, we need to ensure that we are creating it from the lens of the viewer and in the same sequence that the viewer experiences watching the video. And with that, the thumbnail and title always come first. Thumbnails and titles are 2 different opportunities to hook your viewer in. And for me, I like to make sure that they don't repeat each other, but complement one another. We're sharing parts of the story to leave the viewer with the highest level of intrigue. And speaking of intrigue, what is considered intriguing? How do I know if this is going to leave the viewer wanting to find out more? The answer is simple: we look at things that already work and level them up. In my video example, I noticed that there were a lot of titles labeled "How to Make Passive Income on YouTube." So I used it and leveled it up by changing it to the following: How to Make Passive Income with 1 Video on YouTube. We can use the same concept for thumbnails. Many creators reuse the same thumbnails with a small twist. One thing that a lot of successful thumbnails have in common is that they're able to always tell more with less. You want to ensure that your thumbnail is clean. The less text, the more powerful the thumbnail is. I like to stick to a 3-word max count, and if there is text, you want to ensure that the colors contrast well with the background. One website I like to use is coloradob.com to help show complementary colors. And because we don't know the screen size of the device that the viewer is watching on or where on YouTube our thumbnail will pop up, we need to make sure that on all levels, the thumbnail is clear. The site that I use to view the thumbnail in all sizes before uploading is Thumbs Up TV, where I can confirm that the thumbnail is viewable in dark mode and when my brightness is much lower. The last step of my process is asking for feedback from 10 friends and family members, photoshopping my thumbnail between the top 10 search results on YouTube and seeing which thumbnail they'll select as their favorite. Oh, yeah, and don't tell them which one is yours. One thing to keep in mind: whatever we do to level up thumbnails and titles, you need to ensure you deliver on your promise. Otherwise you lose trust, and losing trust. Scripting is the soul of the video, and it's very important that before I begin to have a clear outline with the title of the topics that I want to discuss. This will ensure that the video is always focused. Under each title, I'll include the resource or the value that I want to share with the viewer. After that part is complete, I start writing things unfiltered. This helps me get all my ideas out on paper and keeps the personality of my delivery. I worry about consolidation once that part is done. The hardest part of scripting is creating the first 30 seconds. And this part I'm still learning. The first 30 seconds of my last videos, where we lost 35% of the viewers, and had they stayed, they most likely would have finished the video. The mistake I made in the first video is not getting to the point quickly enough or reassuring the viewer that what they saw in the title and thumbnail is exactly what I'll be discussing. The last piece to script in is consolidation. I like to cut out any piece of info that adds 0 value to the viewer or the story I'm telling. For instance, if you have point A, B and C, but you can cut out point B without losing meaning or information, just do it. I use Final Cut Pro for my editing, and while there are other free options for editing, I personally love the simplicity of the platform, especially for beginners. In terms of the editing process, I go through my voiceover first and continue the consolidation process by cutting unnecessary segments. I then add the B-roll and add all the footage across the timeline. With every image that I add to the timeline, I'm thinking about how it would tie into the background music and potential sound effect. I used to spend a lot of time on finding the perfect footage, but the perfect footage is the one that will sync perfectly with the background music and sound effect to create the feel and experience for your viewer beyond just visual clips. For the footage, I use Envato Elements, which is also where I get my sound effects and plugins for easier editing effects. For the background music, I use Epidemic Sound because they not only have genres nicely separated, but they also have background music categorized under different moods. And this is critical to enhance the feel of your video to match the experience you want your viewer to have in a well-crafted video. You don't want your viewer to just leave with more information, but you want them to also leave with feeling something, and that will make your content more memorable. Once you have that final version of your video created and you're ready to post that submit button, wait. Because the last step is showing this video to the same 5 to 10 people. And as creepy as it might sound, watch them watching your video and document, at which points they get distracted or lose interest, because that's your cue to go back and figure out ways to improve those sections. One question I kept on getting was, how did you learn editing? And I wish I had a simple, pretty answer to this, but I don't. Whenever I saw a transition or effect that caught my attention from content creators, I took note of it. I went back to look up how to do such and such transition on Final Cut Pro. I always found what I was looking for, but it took a lot of time and practice to get to this point, and everything that is worthwhile will take time, effort and failures to learn from. Thanks for watching.